Sometimes, the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the ones we trusted with everything. The people who held our secrets, stood by us in childhood photos, and promised to always be there. But what happens when those people are the very ones holding the knife? What would you do if just 60 minutes before you're supposed to say "I do," you discover that the man you love and your maid of honor, your best friend since childhood, have been betraying you all along, and you're 5 months pregnant with his child? This is the story of a bride who turned her wedding day disaster into something no one saw coming. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily episodes of jaw-dropping true stories. When Samantha Reyes woke up on her wedding day, she thought she was living a fairy tale. At 29, she had a thriving career as a veterinary surgeon, was expecting her first child, and was about to marry Dylan Carter, her boyfriend of 3 years. With her best friend Leah Morgan by her side as maid of honor, and her beloved father ready to walk her down the aisle. Everything seemed perfect. But as we're about to find out, appearances can be devastatingly deceiving. Samantha Reyes had always been the kind of person who saw the best in others. Growing up without her mother, who passed away when she was just 11, she and her father, Anthony Reyes, formed an unbreakable bond. Perhaps it was that early loss that made Samantha value relationships so deeply, holding on to the people she loved with unwavering loyalty. "I always told her she had a heart too big for this world," Anthony would later tell family friends. "She gives people chance after chance, believing in them even when they don't believe in themselves." This quality had served Samantha well in her work as a veterinary surgeon, where clients and colleagues alike adored her calm, compassionate presence. But in her personal life, that same quality had left her vulnerable. The morning of August 27th began like any bride's dream. Samantha was staying in the bridal suite of the Valencia Bay Resort, the same venue where the ceremony would take place in the oceanfront garden at 4 p.m. Her father had spared no expense for his only daughter's wedding, especially after finding out he would soon be a grandfather. The bride toasted with her 3 bridesmaids, her cousin Isabel, her college roommate Tori, and of course, Leah Morgan, her best friend since 6th grade. Leah raised her glass of orange juice in solidarity with the pregnant bride. "To my best friend, who's going to be the most beautiful bride and the most amazing mother. I'm so happy for you." If Samantha, had she been paying closer attention, she might have noticed how Leah's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, or how her fingers trembled ever so slightly when she adjusted Samantha's veil, masking unease behind picture-perfect poise. She kept checking her phone every few minutes, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes each time it lit up. But Samantha was floating on a cloud of pre-wedding bliss and pregnancy hormones. Let's rewind 3 years to understand how Samantha and Dylan first met. It was at an animal rescue gala, where Dylan, a medical device rep, approached Samantha with his signature charm. There had been dozens of people milling around, but when he locked eyes with her, it was like the noise faded and the spotlight found them both. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Samantha would later recall, when he focused those green eyes on you and smiled, everything else just faded away. Their courtship had been a whirlwind. Dylan was attentive, romantic, and seemed to tick every box. He sent flowers to her clinic, remembered small things she mentioned in passing, and charmed her father with his appreciation for rare jazz vinyls, Anthony's one true indulgence. But now, looking back, Samantha would wonder if every gesture had been just that, a performance. What Samantha didn't see were the small red flags that occasionally surfaced. The unexplained late nights, the defensive reactions when she asked innocent questions about his whereabouts, how he subtly distanced her from male friends over time. There had even been a weekend when he vanished, claiming a conference, only for his social media to mysteriously go dark. But these moments were always quickly overshadowed by grand gestures and passionate makeups. 8 months ago, when Samantha discovered she was pregnant, she was terrified to tell Dylan. They hadn't discussed children, and she wasn't sure where he stood. To her relief, Dylan proposed just days after she shared the news. "It's like the universe knew," he told her as he slid a princess-cut diamond onto her finger. I was already looking at rings. This just confirms you're the one I want to build a family with. And just like that, Samantha's fears dissolved. She had no idea that the very moment she felt safest was when the real betrayal was already taking root. What Samantha didn't know was that Dylan had already been seeing someone else throughout their entire relationship, and that someone was much closer than she could have imagined. Back in the bridal suite, the hairstylist was putting the finishing touches on Samantha's elegant updo, while the makeup artist waited her turn. The room buzzed with activity. The photographer capturing candid moments, bridesmaids steaming out last-minute wrinkles in their dusty rose dresses, and Leah organizing the timeline with military precision. I'm just going to check on the reception space, Leah announced, smoothing her silk robe, and maybe see if I can spot a certain groom hiding somewhere he shouldn't be. She winked at Samantha. Tell him he'd better not try to see me before the ceremony, Samantha laughed. It's bad luck. If only bad luck were the worst thing waiting for her. 20 minutes later, as the makeup artist was applying Samantha's false lashes, a knock came at the door. Isabel opened it to find a young waiter standing awkwardly in the hallway, clutching a silver tray with a folded note. Delivery for the bride, he said, his voice unsteady. From the groom. Isabel took the note and brought it to Samantha, who beamed. Probably telling me how he can't wait to see me walk down the aisle, she said, carefully opening it to avoid disturbing her still-setting makeup. But instead of romantic sentiments, she found a hastily scrawled message. I think you should know what I just saw. Men's bathroom, 2nd floor. Your fiancé and maid of honor. I'm sorry, Michael. Samantha read the note 3 times, her hands beginning to tremble. What is it? Tori asked, noticing the shift in her friend's demeanor. I need some air, Samantha managed, standing up so abruptly that the makeup artist had to step back. Keep getting ready, I'll be right back. But your makeup isn't, the artist began. 5 minutes, Samantha cut her off, already moving toward the door, the note crumpled in her fist. In the hallway, the waiter, Michael, according to his name tag, was still lingering, concern evident on his young face. Is this some kind of joke? Samantha demanded, keeping her voice low. Michael shook his head, his expression grave. I wish it was, ma'am. I was delivering drinks to the groomsmen's suite when I heard noises from the bathroom. The door wasn't fully closed. I saw them. Together. Very together. I thought you deserved to know. Samantha felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. A part of her wanted to accuse this stranger of lying, of trying to ruin her perfect day. But the earnestness in his eyes stopped her. Show me, she whispered. Michael led her through a service corridor and up a back stairwell to avoid being seen by guests who were beginning to arrive. Samantha's heart pounded so loudly she was sure it echoed in the stairwell. Her right hand instinctively went to her baby bump, as if to protect her unborn child from whatever she was about to discover. They emerged on the 2nd floor, and Michael pointed silently to a door marked Men at the end of a deserted hallway. They're still in there, he whispered. I checked before coming to you. Samantha nodded, took a deep breath, and moved toward the bathroom door with surprising steadiness. As she got closer, she heard voices, familiar voices, having a conversation that would shatter her world. The door was indeed cracked open slightly. Through it, she could see a slice of the bathroom interior reflected in the mirror, just enough to make out Leah perched on the marble counter, her legs wrapped around Dylan, who stood between them, his hands on her waist. How much longer do we have to keep this charade up? Leah was saying, her voice laced with bitterness, as she twirled a strand of Dylan's hair around her finger like it belonged to her. I'm tired of being the supportive best friend when I should be the one wearing that dress. Dylan chuckled, his voice carrying that smooth confidence Samantha once found so attractive. Just a few more hours, babe. After the wedding, we'll stick to the plan. I'll play the devoted husband long enough to secure the business partnership with her father. Then in a year or so, we'll have our tragic falling out. Leah pouted. And I have to watch you marry her while pretending to be happy about it? Think of it as an acting challenge, Dylan replied, leaning in to kiss her neck. Besides, you're getting something out of this too. Anthony's connections are going to take your event planning business to the next level. Leah smirked, eyes glittering with ambition. I've already made contact with 3 of his real estate partners. Once they see my work at this wedding, I'll be booked out for a year. So yeah, I'm cashing in too. I guess, Leah sighed, but it's getting harder. Watching her waddle around with your baby, thinking she's living some perfect life. Dylan pulled back slightly, his expression hardening. That kid is just an unfortunate complication. But it actually works in our favor. Makes the marriage look more necessary and the eventual divorce settlement more substantial. He laughed under his breath. Honestly, getting her pregnant might have been the smartest mistake I ever made. Leah laughed. How can she be so naive that she doesn't suspect anything about us? At all? 3 years and she never once caught on? Because she sees what she wants to see, Dylan replied with a dismissive wave. Samantha's always been desperate for her own little family after her mom died. She's so pathetically grateful for any scrap of attention that she never questions anything too deeply. She clings to love like it's oxygen, Leah sneered. It's almost sad. Samantha's hand flew to her mouth to stifle the gasp that threatened to escape. Her other hand pressed harder against her belly, as if she could somehow shield her baby from these cruel words. You also got her pregnant, Leah added, her voice tinged with venom. You really want to leave her broken? Dylan's reply chilled Samantha to the bone. The pregnancy was the perfect excuse to fast-track the wedding. Anthony practically threw his checkbook at me to do right by his little girl. As for leaving her broken, he shrugged. Collateral damage. She'll have the kid to focus on. She'll be fine. You're terrible, Leah said, but her tone was admiring rather than condemning. She pulled him closer. That's why I love you. Now give me a proper kiss before I have to go back and pretend to help the blushing bride. Samantha had seen and heard enough. She quickly pulled out her phone and began recording, capturing their embrace and the continuing conversation about their scheme. Her hands were surprisingly steady as she documented the betrayal, making sure to get clear footage of their faces and incriminating words. After nearly a minute of recording, she quietly backed away from the door and returned to where Michael waited anxiously at the end of the hallway. Thank you, she said to the young waiter, her voice unnaturally calm. What's your full name? Michael Ramirez, he replied, clearly concerned by her eerie composure. Are you okay, ma'am? Samantha took a deep breath. No, Michael, I'm not okay, but I will be. She looked at her phone, now containing irrefutable evidence of her fiancé's betrayal. Do you know anything about the audiovisual setup for the ceremony? Michael nodded. Actually, yes. My cousin runs AV for the whole resort. He's setting up now. A slight dangerous smile appeared on Samantha's face. I need a favor, a big one, and I promise you'll be compensated for your help. Anything, Michael said without hesitation. What they're doing to you isn't right. I need you to get this video to your cousin, Samantha explained, sending the clip to Michael's phone. But he can't play it until I give a specific signal during the ceremony. Can you arrange that? Michael nodded, determination in his eyes. Consider it done. As they worked out the details, Samantha's mind was racing. The initial shock was giving way to something else. A cold, clear anger and a steely resolve. She wouldn't just cancel the wedding and slink away in shame. No, these 2 people who had conspired to use and discard her deserved something special. It's Leah, Samantha said, looking at her phone. Wondering where I am. She squared her shoulders and smoothed her robe. Time to go back and give the performance of my life. As she walked back to the bridal suite, Samantha felt her baby give a strong kick, as if in solidarity. She placed her hand on her stomach and whispered, Don't worry, little one, Mom's got this. When Samantha returned to the bridal suite, she was the picture of serene, bride-to-be bliss. If anything, she seemed calmer than before she left. There you are, Leah exclaimed, rushing over. I was about to send out a search party. Everything okay? Samantha smiled with remarkable composure. Never better. Just needed a moment to breathe and take it all in. Only her father, who had arrived during her absence, seemed to notice something different in his daughter's eyes. Anthony Reyes had raised Samantha alone since she was 11, and he knew every subtle shift in her expressions. Sammy, he said quietly, using his pet name for her as he gently pulled her aside while the others bustled about. Is something wrong? For a brief moment, Samantha's carefully constructed facade wavered. She looked into her father's concerned face, the man who had been her rock through every challenge life had thrown at her, and felt a sudden urge to tell him everything. But the suite was too crowded, the ears too many, and her plan required secrecy. "Dad," she whispered, squeezing his hand, "do you trust me?" Confusion crossed his features, but he nodded without hesitation. "With my life." "Then trust me now when I say everything's going to be fine? But I need you to follow my lead today, no matter what happens. Can you do that?" Anthony studied his daughter's face. Though mystified, he saw the determination behind her eyes, the same look she had when she decided to become a vet, despite his hopes she'd join the family's construction business. The same expression she wore when she announced her pregnancy and her intention to raise the child, whether Dylan stayed or not. "I've got your back, Sammy. Always have, always will." She hugged him tightly, drawing strength from the embrace. Over his shoulder she caught sight of Leah watching them with an impatient expression, checking her watch meaningfully. "Time for you to head down, Dad," Samantha said, pulling back. "The guys must be wondering where you are." As Anthony left to join Dylan and the groomsmen, Samantha returned to the makeup chair, allowing the artist to finish her work. She stared at her reflection, seeing herself through new eyes. In her mind, Samantha began to replay moments from the past 3 years. Scenes she once interpreted as love and connection, now revealing themselves as manipulation and lies. The night Dylan had been furious after finding her having drinks with a male coworker, claiming he was just worried about her safety, when really he was monitoring her friendships. The times Leah had subtly undermined Samantha's confidence, suggesting dress styles that weren't quite flattering, making backhanded compliments about her career choices, always positioning herself as the more sophisticated, desirable woman. How Dylan always seemed to have an explanation for missed dates or strange texts. Tech issues, work crises, family emergencies. Samantha had accepted it all without question, because she believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. The way both of them had pushed for a lavish wedding, rather than the intimate ceremony Samantha had originally wanted. "You only get married once," Leah had insisted. "Let your dad show off a little. And besides, people will talk if it's too small." Her voice had sounded light at the time, but now it echoed like a warning Samantha never noticed. Now Samantha understood. They'd been eyeing Anthony's connections and resources all along, not celebrating her happiness, positioning themselves for opportunity. As these realizations washed over her, the makeup artist announced she was finished. Samantha blinked at her reflection. She looked flawless, radiant even, with a glow that everyone would attribute to bridal excitement and pregnancy. But in truth, it was the kind of shine that comes from surviving fire, from knowing a storm is coming and choosing to walk through it anyway. "It's time for the dress," Isabel announced excitedly. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Samantha stepped into the custom gown she had chosen months ago, an elegant A-line design that accommodated her growing baby bump while still capturing the romantic aesthetic she had dreamed of. The empire waist was adorned with delicate beading that caught the light with each movement, and the modified sweetheart neckline complemented her collarbone perfectly. As Tori arranged the train and Isabel secured the veil, Leah circled Samantha with a critical eye. "You look nice," she said with practiced hesitation. "The dress is doing the best it can with the bump situation." The words were casual, too casual, the kind that sliced deeper because of how gently they were delivered. Samantha caught Tori's slight frown at the backhanded compliment, but she herself just smiled. "Thank you for your honesty, Leah. As always." The double meaning was lost on Leah, who was already checking her phone again. "Dylan just texted me. Kyle texted me about Dylan." She quickly corrected, referencing one of the groomsmen. "Everything's set on their end. The guests are seated." "Perfect timing," Samantha said, picking up her bouquet of cream roses and baby's breath. "I believe it's showtime." As they lined up for the processional, Samantha pulled Michael aside under the pretense of adjusting a decoration. "Is everything set?" she whispered. Michael nodded discreetly. "My cousin Marco has the video ready on a separate input. When you cue us by saying, 'I'd like to share something special,' he'll switch to it on the main screens." "Thank you," Samantha said, genuinely grateful. "You're saving more than just my day." Michael's expression was solemn. "No one deserves what they were planning to do to you." Samantha squeezed his arm in gratitude before taking her position at the back of the procession. As the bridesmaids began their walk down the aisle one by one, she stood with her father, accepting his arm with a serene smile that revealed nothing of the storm within. "Ready, Sammy?" Anthony asked, patting her hand on his arm. Samantha took a deep breath and nodded. "More ready than you can imagine, Dad." The wedding coordinator gave them their cue. As the bridal march began to play, all the guests rose to their feet, cameras raised to capture the bride's entrance. At the altar, Dylan stood with an appropriately adoring expression, the perfect picture of a happy groom about to marry the mother of his child. Only Samantha knew it was all a lie. And soon, everyone else would too. With each step down the aisle, Samantha felt more certain of her plan. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her dignity, protecting her child from a father who saw it as a complication, and exposing the true character of two people who had betrayed her so completely. As she and her father reached the altar, Anthony kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Dylan's, a symbolic gesture of giving away the bride that had always struck Samantha as somewhat outdated but tradition-bound. Today, it felt particularly ironic. "You look beautiful," Dylan whispered as he took her hands. His green eyes, once so charming to her, now revealed the calculation behind them. "And you look exactly like what you are," Samantha replied quietly, her smile never wavering. A flicker of confusion crossed Dylan's face, but before he could respond, the officiant began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Dylan Everett Carter and Samantha Elaine Reyes in holy matrimony." As the ceremony progressed, Samantha maintained her composure, responding appropriately when required, smiling at the right moments. Anyone watching would see a radiant bride, perhaps a bit more intense than usual, but certainly happy on her wedding day. Inside, she was counting down the moments until everything would change. The oceanfront garden of the Valencia Bay Resort was a vision straight out of a bridal magazine. White chairs adorned with soft, rose-colored ribbons lined either side of the aisle, which was carpeted with ivory petals. A floral arch framed the altar, where Samantha and Dylan now stood facing each other, the officiant between them reciting traditional words about love, trust, and lifelong commitment. In the front row, Anthony Reyes sat with a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Beside him was Dylan's mother, dabbing at tears that seemed more performative than genuine, much like her son's current expression of devotion. "Marriage is a sacred bond," the officiant continued. "A promise made not just between two people, but before family, friends, and in many traditions, before God. It requires honesty, fidelity, and mutual respect." Each word felt like a dagger to Samantha, as she thought about the conversation she had overheard. Her eyes drifted briefly to Leah, who stood in her maid of honor position, clutching her bouquet with a plastic smile that barely concealed her impatience for the charade to be over. Looking back at Dylan, Samantha saw him in a way she never had before. The charming smile that once made her heart flutter now seemed practiced and hollow. The way he kept glancing at the influential guests, particularly her father's business associates, revealed his true priorities. As the officiant spoke about the journey that had brought them to this day, Samantha's mind drifted to significant moments in their relationship, now viewed through a lens of painful clarity. Their first anniversary, when Dylan had been mysteriously unavailable all day, only to show up late in the evening with an extravagant gift and passionate apologies. She had forgiven him immediately, touched by his apparent remorse. Now she wondered if he had been with Leah that day, perhaps laughing about how easily persuaded Samantha would be. The weekend trip to meet Dylan's family, when Leah had inexplicably shown up at the same resort, claiming a last-minute booking for a client event. The three of them had spent the day together, and Samantha had been pleased that her boyfriend and best friend got along so well. The memory now twisted in her stomach like a knife. The night she told Dylan about the pregnancy, nervous about his reaction, and the momentary flash of panic she saw before he smoothed his expression into excitement. She had chalked it up to shock. But now she realized it was him recalculating his timeline. making a quick mental adjustment to leverage this new development. Most painful of all was the memory of crying on Leah's shoulder after a fight with Dylan, confiding her deepest insecurities about whether she was enough for him. "Any man would be lucky to have you," Leah had assured her. "Dylan knows that," all while sleeping with him behind her back. And now, the officiant's voice pulled Samantha from her thoughts. "Before we proceed to the vows, I understand the couple has prepared their own personal messages to share." This was the moment, the one Samantha had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. According to their planned ceremony, Dylan would speak first, then Samantha, followed by the traditional vows and exchange of rings. Dylan cleared his throat and produced a folded paper from his jacket pocket. His expression shifted to one of tender sincerity, so convincing that for a moment, Samantha almost doubted what she had heard earlier. "Almost. Samantha," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the garden. "From the moment we met, I knew you were someone special. Your kindness, your compassion, the way you care so deeply for others, these qualities drew me to you and make me proud to become your husband today." Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the guests. Anthony nodded approvingly, though his eyes remained watchful. "As we prepare to welcome our child into the world," Dylan continued, placing a practiced hand on Samantha's baby bump for the benefit of the photographers, "I promise to be the husband and father that you both deserve, to build a life based on trust, respect, and unwavering devotion." The irony was almost too much to bear. Samantha maintained her smile, though it felt frozen on her face. "You are my best friend, my partner, and soon to be the mother of my child. I love you, today and always." Dylan folded the paper, looking pleased with himself as appreciative sounds came from the audience. He squeezed Samantha's hands, a gesture meant to look reassuring, but to her it felt possessive. The officiant turned to her. And now, Samantha would like to share her personal message to Dylan. This was it, the point of no return. Samantha took a deep breath and caught Michael's eye where he stood discreetly near the back of the garden. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, confirming everything was in place. "Dylan," Samantha began, her voice steady and clear, "when I woke up this morning, I had a very different speech prepared, one about love and trust and building a future together." Dylan smiled encouragingly, completely unaware of what was coming. "But sometimes," Samantha continued, "life gives us unexpected revelations that change everything, in an instant." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Dylan's features. Beside them, Leah shifted uncomfortably. "Before I share what I've learned," Samantha said, turning slightly to address the gathered guests, "I want to thank all of you for coming today, to what you thought would be a celebration of love and commitment." Confused murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Dylan's smile was fading rapidly. "I'd like to share something special with all of you," Samantha said, speaking the agreed-upon cue clearly while looking directly at Michael. Within seconds, the decorative screens, until now displaying gentle beach scenes and romantic quotes, flickered and changed. Suddenly, the unmistakable images of Dylan and Leah in the bathroom appeared, larger than life. Their voices echoed crystal clear through the garden's professional sound system. "How much longer do we have to keep this charade up?" Leah's recorded voice rang out. "I'm tired of being the supportive best friend when I should be the one wearing that dress." Gasps erupted from the guests. Dylan's face drained of color as he watched himself on screen. "Just a few more hours, babe. After the wedding, we'll stick to the plan. I'll play the devoted husband long enough to secure the business partnership with her father. Then, in a year or so, we'll have our tragic falling out." Anthony Reyes stood abruptly, his face contorted with rage as he watched the betrayal unfold in front of everyone. Several of Dylan's friends shifted uncomfortably, glancing anywhere but at the groom, suggesting they might have known about the affair. The video continued, playing the most damning parts of the conversation, including Dylan's callous remarks about the pregnancy being an unfortunate complication and the couple's plans to exploit Anthony's business connections. Samantha stood perfectly still, her eyes never leaving Dylan as his carefully constructed facade crumbled before the very people he had hoped to impress. When the video finally ended, the garden was filled with a stunned silence, so complete that you could hear the distant crash of ocean waves beyond the hedges. Samantha turned to face her guests, her voice remarkably composed. As you can see, I will not be marrying Dylan today. Or ever. She then turned to Leah, whose face had gone from shocked to defiant. And I certainly won't be maintaining a friendship with someone who could betray me so completely. Sam? Dylan finally found his voice, reaching for her arm. This is... Don't touch me, Samantha said, her tone glacial as she stepped back. Don't speak to me. There is nothing you could possibly say that would undo what I just heard. Anthony had made his way to the altar, positioning himself protectively beside his daughter. I think you should leave now, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. But Dylan, seeing his carefully laid plans disintegrating, made one last desperate attempt. Samantha, think about the baby. We can talk about this privately. You're emotional because of the hormones. The slap echoed through the garden, surprising even Samantha as she felt the sting on her palm. Dylan's head snapped to the side, a red mark blooming across his cheek. Don't you dare. Hissed. Don't you dare use my child as leverage or blame this on hormones. You lost the right to mention my baby when you called it an unfortunate complication. Dylan's mother had risen now too, her expression mortified as she approached her son. Dylan Everett Carter, she said sharply. I did not raise you to behave this way. This is disgraceful. She turned to Samantha with genuine remorse. I'm so deeply sorry, my dear, so deeply sorry. Meanwhile, Leah had been trying to back away discreetly, but found her path blocked by Isabel and Tori, who stood with arms crossed, glaring at their former friend. Going somewhere, Leah? Isabel asked coldly. After all your hard work planning this wedding, you're going to miss the best part? Leah's composure finally cracked. This is ridiculous. It's not like he ever really loved you anyway. You trapped him with that pregnancy. A collective gasp rose from the guests at this new cruelty. Samantha, however, remained remarkably calm. Is that what he told you? She asked, her tone almost pitying. Because, according to what we all just heard, he's been using both of us. You're as much a pawn in his game as I was. Uncertainty flickered across Leah's face as the truth of Samantha's words sank in. Dylan, seeing his support crumbling from all sides, finally turned and stormed out of the garden, pushing past shocked guests without another word. Leah hesitated, clearly torn between following him and saving face. This isn't over, she finally said, her voice breaking slightly, before she too fled the scene. As the murmuring of the crowd grew louder, Samantha felt her father's arm wrap around her shoulders, steadying her. The strength that had carried her through the confrontation began to waver as the reality of what had just happened hit her fully. Dad, she whispered, her voice finally betraying a tremor. I've got you, Sammy, Anthony said, holding her close. I've got you both. For several long moments, the garden was a tableau of shocked faces and whispered exclamations. Samantha stood at the altar, her father's protective arm around her shoulders. As the guests tried to process the dramatic scene they had just witnessed, the officiant, clearly at a loss for how to proceed, quietly closed his ceremonial book and stepped back, giving Samantha and her father space. Isabel and Tori moved closer, forming a protective circle around their friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Anthony finally addressed the stunned crowd, his authoritative voice cutting through the murmurs. As you can understand, the wedding will not be proceeding as planned. He looked down at Samantha with a questioning expression. Samantha straightened her shoulders and nodded slightly, finding her voice again. However, she continued, you are all still invited to join us for the reception. The food has been paid for, the band is ready, and I see no reason why an unfortunate revelation should prevent us from enjoying a beautiful summer afternoon together. A ripple of surprised approval moved through the crowd. This was clearly not the reaction they had expected from a jilted bride. Before we move to the reception area, Samantha added, her voice growing stronger, I want to thank you all for being here. Your presence means more to me now than ever. Today has not turned out as I planned, but perhaps it's turned out as it needed to. She placed a hand gently on her baby bump. My priority now is the well-being of my child and creating a life of honesty and genuine love. I hope you'll join me in celebrating that commitment instead. The garden erupted in supportive applause, led enthusiastically by Anthony's business associates in the front row. Samantha caught sight of Michael, who gave her a discreet thumbs up from his position near the back. As the guests began to move toward the reception area, several stopped to offer Samantha words of support and admiration for her strength and composure. Dylan's mother approached again, her eyes red-rimmed with embarrassment and genuine sorrow. "Samantha, dear," she began, clearly struggling to find the right words. "I don't know what to say, except that I am mortified by my son's behavior. Please know this is not how he was raised." Samantha took the older woman's trembling hands in her own. "Mrs. Carter, you have nothing to apologize for. Dylan made his choices as an adult. I know you would have stopped him if you'd known." "The baby," Mrs. Carter said hesitantly. "That's still my grandchild. I hope someday we'll figure something out." Samantha surprised herself with the generosity of her response. This child deserves all the love available to them. Mrs. Carter nodded gratefully before being led away by a sympathetic relative. As the garden began to clear, Samantha finally allowed herself a moment of privacy with her innermost circle, her father, Isabel, and Tori. The four of them moved to a quiet corner of the garden, where Samantha finally sank onto a decorative bench. The enormity of the day's events was catching up with her. Her shoulders dropped, not from defeat, but from sheer emotional exhaustion. The weight of betrayal, adrenaline, and the strength it had taken to stand tall all finally crashing down at once. "I can't believe you pulled that off," Isabel said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. "You were magnificent." "Like a warrior queen," Tori agreed, carefully adjusting Samantha's veil, which had begun to slip. "Honestly, I've never seen anyone hold their ground like that, especially not in heels and false lashes." "But how did you find out? And when did you have time to plan all this?" Samantha explained about Michael's warning note and what she had witnessed in the bathroom, just an hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. Anthony's expression darkened as he heard the full extent of Dylan and Leah's plans. "I knew there was something off about that boy," he muttered. "Too polished, too eager to talk business. I should have trusted my instincts." "We all missed it," Samantha said gently. "They were very convincing." Her voice wavered slightly, the only crack in her otherwise composed exterior. "The important thing," Isabel pointed out, "is that you caught them before it was too late, before you were legally tied to that snake." A sudden commotion from the direction of the hotel made them all turn. Dylan had reappeared, his tie askew and his face flushed, with either embarrassment or alcohol, possibly both. He was being physically restrained by two of his groomsmen, while a third tried to reason with him. "Let me talk to her," Dylan was shouting. "Samantha, this is all a misunderstanding." Anthony started to move toward the confrontation, but Samantha placed a hand on his arm. "I need to handle this myself, Dad." There was no trembling in her voice, no hesitation, only that cold, clean resolve that comes when a woman realizes she has nothing left to fear. With remarkable dignity, Samantha walked toward Dylan, stopping several feet away from where he was still struggling against his friend's restraint. The groomsman looked embarrassed and apologetic. "We tried to get him to leave," one explained. "He insisted on explaining himself." "There's nothing to explain," Samantha said calmly, addressing Dylan directly. "I heard everything I needed to hear." Dylan's expression shifted from anger to a calculated charm that once would have melted her resolve, but now just disgusted her. The same smile that used to make her weak now looked plastic, like a salesman trying to close one last deal. "Baby, you took that conversation completely out of context. Leah was upset about something else entirely, and I was just playing along to calm her down." "Stop," Samantha held up a hand. "You're only making this worse for yourself. I heard you call our child an unfortunate complication. I heard you detail plans to use my father's business connections. There is no context that makes any of that acceptable." Dylan's facade cracked slightly. "What about the baby? You're going to raise it alone, out of spite?" "No," Samantha replied evenly. "I'm going to raise this child with love, surrounded by people who genuinely care about us, not people who see us as pawns in their game." "You'll be hearing from my lawyer about support and visitation options," she added, "but that's the extent of our relationship moving forward." She turned to walk away, but Dylan called after her, his voice taking on a nasty edge. "You know, Leah was right about one thing. You were always too trusting, too desperate for a family to replace the one you lost when your mom died. It made you an easy target. Samantha froze, the cruel words striking a vulnerable spot. Before she could respond, Anthony stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "That's enough," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You've done enough damage today, son. I suggest you leave. Before I forget, I'm a gentleman." The threat in his tone was unmistakable. Dylan, finally reading the room correctly, allowed his friends to lead him away, muttering under his breath as they disappeared around the corner of the building. Samantha let out a long, shaky breath. "He's right about one thing," she admitted. "I was too trusting." "No," Tori said firmly. "Being trusting isn't a flaw, Sam. It's one of your best qualities. Dylan and Leah are the ones with the problem, not you. And you're not alone," Isabel added. "You have us. You have your dad, and you have that little one." She gently gestured to Samantha's bump. "That's a real family." Anthony put his arm around his daughter again. "Now, I believe we have a reception to attend. And while it may not be celebrating what we thought it would, I'd say we have even more reason to celebrate your strength and your new beginning." Samantha nodded, drawing courage from their support. "You're right. Let's not let a perfectly good party go to waste." As they turned toward the reception area, a flash of movement caught Samantha's eye. Leah stood partially hidden behind a decorative pillar, watching them with an expression that mingled anger and something that looked almost like regret. "Go ahead," Samantha told the others. "There's one more conversation I need to have." Her father hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Samantha confirmed. "I'll be right behind you." As the others reluctantly moved toward the reception, Samantha approached Leah, who straightened defensively, her mascara slightly smudged from angry tears. "Come to gloat?" Leah asked bitterly. "You certainly put on quite a show in there." "No," Samantha said quietly. "I came to ask you one question. Why?" Leah's practiced composure faltered, her arms folded instinctively, as if bracing for a hit she couldn't see coming. "Why what? Why pretend to be my friend all these years? We've known each other since we were 12, Leah. You were there when my mom died. You helped me through my first heartbreak, my licensing exams, everything. Was it all fake, or just the last 3 years?" The directness of the question seemed to catch Leah off guard. She looked away, unable to meet Samantha's steady gaze. "It wasn't all fake," she finally admitted, her voice barely audible. "In the beginning, it was real, but then things changed." "When you met Dylan," Samantha stated rather than asked. Leah nodded reluctantly. "I saw him first at that animal rescue fundraiser. I pointed him out to you, remember? But he only had eyes for you." There was a bitter pause. "It's always been that way," she continued, venom creeping into her voice. "You walk into a room and everything bends toward you, the scholarships, the job offers, the guys. Even your grief made people love you more." "So this was about jealousy?" Samantha asked, incredulous. "You betrayed 15 years of friendship because you were jealous?" "It became more than that," Leah insisted. "Dylan and I, we connect on a level you wouldn't understand. We're both ambitious. We both want more than this provincial life you're so content with." "No," Samantha said softly. "You don't want more. You just want what's mine." Samantha shook her head, a sad smile forming on her lips. "And yet, here you are, hiding behind a pillar while he tries to talk his way back into my good graces. Did you know he came back to plead his case?" she added. "Not to find you." Leah's expression confirmed that she hadn't known. And the news hit her hard. Her breath caught, eyes flicking downward as if trying to hold back humiliation. "He's just confused right now. Damage control, maybe." "Or maybe," Samantha said, "you're both exactly what you deserve. People who think love and loyalty are commodities to be traded for advantage." She began to turn away, then paused. "I truly hope you find what you're looking for, Leah, but I doubt it'll make you happy." "Where are you going?" Leah called after her, a note of desperation creeping into her voice. Samantha glanced back over her shoulder. "To celebrate. With people who genuinely care about me. You're not invited." With those final words, Samantha walked away, feeling the weight of 15 years of friendship finally lift from her shoulders. It hurt, of course it did, but there was also an unexpected lightness, a sense of liberation from a relationship that had apparently been tainted for longer than she realized. As she approached the reception area, she could hear music playing and the sound of conversation and even laughter. Her father had obviously managed to shift the mood from awkward sympathy to genuine celebration. Before entering, Samantha paused to take one last look at her wedding dress, the gown she had chosen with such hope and excitement. It was still beautiful, still perfect, just not for the purpose she had originally intended. New beginnings, Samantha whispered to herself and her unborn child. Then, with her head held high, she walked into her reception, not as a new wife, but as a stronger, wiser woman, ready to write her own story, on her own terms. The Valencia Bay Resort's elegant reception hall had been transformed from what should have been a traditional wedding celebration into something entirely different, but no less joyful. The Mr. and Mrs. signs and wedding-specific decorations had been discreetly removed by the quick-thinking hotel staff, leaving the beautiful floral arrangements, twinkling lights, and elegant table settings to create an atmosphere of simple celebration. When Samantha entered, the room briefly fell silent before erupting into warm, supportive applause. She smiled, genuinely touched by the show of solidarity from guests who had every reason to feel awkward about the situation. Anthony approached his daughter, offering his arm. "I took the liberty of having the DJ announce a slight change to the program," he explained. "No first dance, no cake-cutting ceremony, just good food, good music, and good company." "Perfect," Samantha agreed, surveying the room. Many of Dylan's friends and distant relatives had unsurprisingly chosen to leave, but the majority of the guests remained, creating a comfortable gathering of people who truly cared about her. "There is one tradition I thought we might keep, though," Anthony said with a gentle smile. "If you do me the honor of a father-daughter dance." Tears welled in Samantha's eyes for the first time that day, not tears of sadness or anger, but of profound gratitude. For the one man who had never let her down. "I'd love that, Dad." As the DJ announced the father-daughter dance, the guests formed a circle around the dance floor. The opening notes of Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World," the song Samantha and her father had selected months ago, filled the room. Anthony led his daughter onto the floor with the same proud expression he would have worn had the day gone exactly as planned. As they began to dance, he spoke quietly, just for her. "Your mother would have been so proud. Proud of you today, Sammy." Samantha looked up at him in surprise. "Even though my marriage fell apart before it began, especially because of that," Anthony affirmed. Catherine never measured success by conventional milestones. She valued courage, integrity, and standing up for yourself. You displayed all of those qualities today. As they moved gently around the floor, Samantha caught glimpses of supportive faces. Isabel and Tori, watching with misty eyes, her colleagues from the animal clinic, giving encouraging smiles. Michael, who had been invited to join the celebration as a guest rather than hotel staff, raised a glass in Samantha's direction. "I'm going to be okay, aren't I?" she asked, more to herself than to her father. "More than okay," Anthony assured her. "You're going to be extraordinary, just as you've always been. And that little one," he glanced down at her baby bump, "is lucky to have you as their mother." As the song ended, something unexpected happened. One by one, guests began to approach the dance floor. First Isabel and Tori, then Samantha's cousins, followed by her colleagues and friends. Each person took a moment to dance with her, offering words of encouragement, support, or simply sharing a brief moment of connection. It became an impromptu support line dance, a spontaneous tradition born in that moment that moved Samantha more deeply than any planned wedding ritual ever could have. Dr. Susan Chen, the chief of veterinary medicine at Samantha's clinic and a mentor she deeply respected, took her turn on the dance floor. "When you're ready to come back from maternity leave," she said as they swayed gently to the music, "there's a new program director position opening. I think you'd be perfect for it." "More regular hours?" Samantha asked, surprised. "Better for a single mom?" "Exactly," Dr. Chen said with a knowing smile. "I didn't know you were considering me for that." "I've always seen your potential, Samantha. Sometimes life's detours lead us to better destinations than we originally planned." As the evening progressed, the atmosphere continued to transform. What could have been a day of humiliation and sorrow had instead become a celebration of authenticity and new beginnings. Dinner was served. Toasts were made, tactfully reworked to honor Samantha's strength and grace rather than a marriage that never was. Even the wedding cake was repurposed. The original bride and groom toppers mysteriously lost and replaced with a simple, elegant floral arrangement. During a quiet moment, Samantha found Michael sitting at a table with some of the younger guests, looking slightly out of place but happy to be included. "I can never thank you enough," she told him sincerely, taking the seat beside him. Most people would have looked the other way, not wanting to get involved. Michael shrugged, his expression earnest. "My mom raised me better than that," he said. "She always told me that standing by while someone gets hurt makes you part of the problem." Samantha smiled warmly. "Your mom sounds like a wise woman." Samantha smiled. "I hope I can teach my child the same values." "Speaking of my mom," Michael said, seeming slightly nervous, "she's actually the event coordinator at my cousin's wedding venue, Sunset Cove, about 20 miles north of here. When I told her what happened today, she wanted me to give you this." He handed Samantha a business card with a handwritten note on the back. "When you're ready to try again with a worthy person, next time, your venue fee is on us. Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. Gloria Ramirez." Samantha was touched by the gesture from a complete stranger. She turned the card over in her hands, the soft ink of the handwritten note making it feel personal, intimate, like a hand reaching out in the dark. "Please thank her for me," she said, "though I think a marriage might be off my priority list for a while." "Understandable," Michael agreed with a smile, "but the offer stands, and if you ever need a friendly face or someone to talk to, someone not directly involved in all this." He gestured vaguely around the room. "I'm a pretty good listener." There was no pressure in his voice, just genuine kindness. No ulterior motive, no agenda. Just a soft landing when the world had gone hard. And Samantha appreciated it for exactly what it was, a simple extension of friendship, with no hidden agenda. "I might take you up on that," she said, surprising herself with the realization that she meant it. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel terrifying to open that door just a little. As the evening began to wind down, Isabel approached with Samantha's phone. "You've got about 50 text messages and missed calls," she reported. "I've been filtering them for you. Most are from people who've heard rumors about what happened and are checking on you." "Any from Dylan or Leah?" Samantha asked, not entirely sure why. Isabel nodded grimly. "Dylan sent a rambling explanation that's mostly about how you're overreacting. Leah sent one that's half apology, half justification. I can delete them both if you want." Samantha considered this for a moment, then shook her head. "No, I'll read them later, not because I'm reconsidering anything, but because I need to see their true colors clearly, to remind myself that I made the right decision." She said it calmly, but there was steel in her voice now, a voice shaped by fire. "Speaking of decisions," Tori joined them, holding a small gift bag. "We were supposed to give you this at your bachelorette party, but it got delayed in shipping and arrived yesterday. Given today's events, it feels even more appropriate now." Curious, Samantha opened the bag and pulled out a small wooden plaque. It was simple, but powerful, engraved with a single line. "The best day of your life is the one on which you decide your life is your own. No apologies, no excuses. The gift is yours. It is an amazing journey, and you alone are responsible for the quality of it." Tears welled in Samantha's eyes as she read the inscription. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Absolutely perfect." As the night drew to a close, many guests had already departed, leaving just the core group of Samantha's closest supporters. They gathered on the hotel's terrace, overlooking the coastline, where the sunset painted the sky in breathtaking shades of pink and gold. Anthony raised his glass of champagne, while Samantha lifted her sparkling water in response. "To unexpected endings and brave new beginnings," he toasted. "And to truth," Samantha added, "painful as it sometimes is." As they clinked glasses, Samantha felt her baby kick, vigorously, as if joining in the toast. She placed a hand on her stomach, a gesture of connection that had taken on a deeper meaning after everything that had happened that day. "What are you going to do now?" Isabel asked gently. "Will you still go on the honeymoon?" Samantha had completely forgotten about the 2-week Mediterranean trip that had been planned months ago. "I hadn't even thought about it," she admitted. "It's all paid for," Tori encouraged. "Convert it to a baby moon instead. You deserve that time to yourself before the little one arrives." Actually, Samantha said slowly, an idea forming. I might have a better plan. Samantha stood on the porch of a charming coastal cottage, her baby bump now much more pronounced at 8 months. The crisp autumn breeze carried the scent of salt water and pine as she looked out over the small, peaceful garden that led down to a private stretch of beach. The sound of a car pulling into the gravel driveway made her turn. Anthony stepped out, carrying grocery bags. Behind him, Isabel and Tori emerged from their own car, loaded with more supplies and overnight bags. The place looks amazing, Anthony said, taking in the newly painted trim and fresh landscaping. You've done wonders with it in such a short time. Samantha smiled. Running her hand along the porch railing, she had sanded and restored herself. It's coming along. Still plenty to do before the baby arrives, but the nursery is ready, and that's what matters. Using the honeymoon refund and a bit of her savings, Samantha had purchased this small cottage, just an hour outside the city. Close enough to commute to her new role as program director at the clinic, but far enough to feel like a true fresh start. How's the name decision coming? Isabel asked as they carried the supplies inside. I'm getting closer, Samantha laughed. Still deciding between honoring my mom with Catherine or going with something completely new to represent this fresh chapter. As they settled onto the porch with their drinks to watch the sunset, Tori raised her glass. Here's to the housewarming and baby welcoming committee, ready for deployment when the little one makes their big debut. I couldn't have gotten through these past few months without all of you, Samantha said sincerely, looking around at each of her closest supporters. The divorce proceedings, the custody arrangements, setting up this place, you've been my rocks. Any word from the former dynamic duo? Isabel asked cautiously. Samantha shook her head. Dylan signed the divorce papers without contest, once his mom got involved. I think she made it clear she'd cut him off completely if he didn't at least do right by the baby. At minimum, he's agreed to child support, she added, but minimal involvement, which is honestly a relief. And Leah? Tori asked. Last I heard, her event planning business lost several major clients after our wedding video somehow leaked online, Samantha said, looking pointedly at Isabel, who maintained an innocent expression despite being the prime suspect behind the leak. She moved to Chicago to restart. We'll probably never cross paths again. Anthony reached over to squeeze his daughter's hand. I'm so proud of how you've handled all of this, Sammy. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. Samantha smiled, looking out toward the horizon, where the sun was dipping low, casting gold across the waves. I had moments where I wanted to, she admitted. But then I remembered, I'm not just making decisions for myself anymore. She cradled her belly protectively. Besides, there's something liberating about having your worst fear happen and realizing it wasn't the end of the world. As the golden light bathed the porch, Samantha felt her baby move, a now familiar sensation that filled her with joy and purpose. The path ahead wasn't the one she had planned, but it was authentically hers. No compromises, no deceptions. Just honest possibility, stretching out like the ocean before her. I think I've decided on a name, she said suddenly, the certainty in her voice as clear as the evening sky. Hope, because that's what I found when I thought all was lost. The name hung in the air like a promise, a perfect ending to a journey that began with betrayal, but transformed into something far more powerful. The discovery of her own strength. And the realization that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come disguised as endings. Dear friend, sometimes life doesn't shout when it wants to break you. It whispers. It hands you betrayal wrapped in a smile, disappointment delivered by those you trusted most. But as the Stoics remind us, it's not what happens to us, but how we respond that defines us. Samantha's story is living proof. She didn't just endure heartbreak, she transformed it into healing, into power, into something real. When the life she planned crumbled, she didn't go down with it. She stood back up, dusted herself off, and began again. And not just for herself, but for the new life growing inside her. That takes strength. That takes grace. So if you're standing in the ruins of something you thought was forever, take a breath. This might not be your ending. It could be your becoming. There's peace in choosing yourself, and strength in walking forward, even when you're scared. If Samantha's journey stirred something in you, I invite you to stay connected. Like this video if it moved you. Leave a comment. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that led to something better? Or do you know someone who's carried themselves with quiet strength, like Samantha did? Subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss one of our true stories, because someone's story might just speak the words your heart needed to hear. And please, share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that hope isn't lost. It's just waiting at the next beginning. Until next time, stay strong, stay authentic, and I'll see you in our next incredible true story. Sometimes, the most fragile empires aren't built on money or power, but on trust. And when that trust breaks, even the strongest foundations crumble quietly in the dead of night. Mistress texted. The millionaire at midnight, pregnant wife, saw it and packed her bags late at night as the moon cast its pallid glow over a coastal villa. A single text message ignited a storm that no one saw coming. Nathan Hale, a multimillionaire revered for his business acumen, received a cryptic midnight message from a woman who shouldn't have his number in the first place. Cassandra Hale, Nathan's pregnant wife, was already restless from her insomnia in a moment that would alter the course of their lives. She peered at her husband's phone and saw a name she never expected to see. Before dawn, suitcases would be packed, secrets would unravel, and hearts would stand on the brink of ruin. Nathan Hale was the kind of man who attracted attention wherever he went, tall, impeccably dressed, and always radiating an air of self-assured success. He had built his fortune through a series of savvy investments and high-stakes deals. Despite his lofty social circle, Nathan liked to boast that he remained a family man at heart, one committed to his pregnant wife, Cassandra. On this particular evening, a hush enveloped the Hale villa. Only the soft hum of the air conditioning unit and the faint click of a security camera outside broke the silence. Cassandra, nearly 7 months pregnant, lay in bed. Sleep had eluded her for weeks, thanks to the persistent discomfort and anxiety that came with impending motherhood. When she finally managed to drift off, it was often fitful and shallow. Nathan had insisted on a high-tech security system that covered every inch of their estate, so he rarely worried about break-ins or intruders. But as the digital clock on the nightstand struck midnight, a tiny ping shattered the stillness of the room. Normally, Nathan's phone was set to silent. Tonight, it wasn't. An oversight that would set off an irreversible chain of events. Cassandra, half asleep, felt a jolt of curiosity. She turned her head, eyes drawn to the phone screen that briefly illuminated the darkness. She could make out a single name on the notification banner: Vanessa Langford. For a moment, her sleep-fogged mind struggled to recall who that was. The name wasn't immediately familiar among their circle of friends or associates. Still, a gnawing sense of dread took root in her chest. She reached for the phone, hesitating. She was not in the habit of reading Nathan's messages. Their relationship, at least until now, had been built on trust, or so she believed. But the lines were blurring. She remembered that Nathan had arrived home exceptionally late, smelling vaguely of an unfamiliar perfume that he'd casually dismissed as a client's cologne lingering in the air of a meeting room. Nathan stirred. Cassandra's heart pounded, but she couldn't resist. She tapped the screen to view the text. The message was simple, but it carried the weight of an entire storm. "I miss you," it read, followed by a suggestive winking face. The words hit her like a slap. Her skin flushed hot, then cold. Her thoughts spiraled. Who was Vanessa? Why was she texting Nathan at midnight, and why would she say she missed him? She shot a glance at her husband. He was breathing evenly, still asleep, seemingly oblivious to the drama blooming right beside him. Cassandra's eyes returned to the screen. Her thumb hovered for a second, trembling, before she gave in. On impulse, she scrolled back, discovering a thread of messages. The earlier ones were innocuous enough, businesslike, confirming appointments. But they grew more intimate over time, culminating in the midnight confession. "I miss you." A shaky breath escaped Cassandra's lips. She felt her baby move as though sensing her tension. Her free hand instinctively covered her belly, a protective reflex as fear surged. That single text, just 3 words, threatened everything Cassandra had believed in. Everything she had built with Nathan teetered on a precipice. The night stretched onward, but it was filled not with rest, but a storm of confusion and heartbreak she never anticipated. Morning arrived gray and subdued. A cloud cover blanketed the vast Hale property, as if even nature conspired to dim the once brilliant glow that had characterized Nathan and Cassandra's relationship. Cassandra had barely slept. She lay awake, phone clutched in her trembling hand, mind racing with the raw evidence she had uncovered. 100 scenarios looped through her head. Was it emotional, physical, ongoing, over? Yet she said nothing to Nathan. Instead, she rose earlier than usual, ignoring the aches in her back and the dull throb of anxiety behind her temples. She made her way to the kitchen, only to find her appetite evaporating. The moment she smelled coffee brewing, she attempted to steady herself by sipping some water, but her hands continued to shake. Nathan walked in soon after, hair disheveled from sleep, his tie draped carelessly around his neck. He flashed her a warm but distracted smile. "You're up early, Cass," he remarked, kissing her cheek. His affectionate nickname for her, a moniker that once felt so comforting, now sounded hollow. She forced a smile in return. "How was your night?" she asked, feigning casual conversation. In her mind, she rehearsed confronting him with the text, demanding he explain who Vanessa Langford was and why she messaged him in the dead of night, but words failed her. She wasn't sure how to begin a confrontation like this, especially while carrying his child. Nathan shrugged. "I slept fine, though I came home pretty late from that meeting," he said, moving to pour himself a cup of coffee. "I'm sorry if I woke you up." Her gaze lingered on him, searching for any crack in his demeanor, any shred of guilt or apprehension. "It's fine," she said softly, taking another sip of her water. "I just couldn't sleep. Well, the baby's been very active." She pressed a hand to her belly, hoping to ground herself in the one truth she still could trust, the life growing inside her. Nathan walked over, placing his palm gently atop hers. Usually she would feel a rush of warmth at this simple gesture, a reaffirmation of their bond. This morning, all she felt was an unsettling numbness. "We'll get through it," he said, misinterpreting her unease. "You just have to rest." His concern felt layered in secrets. Now Cassandra swallowed hard. She wanted so badly to spill everything, to scream at him for lying, to beg him to tell her it was all just a misunderstanding. But fear held her tongue. What if she was overreacting? What if Vanessa was just a business contact who'd stepped over the line? She loathed the thought of falsely accusing him, especially while pregnant. Yet the messages she'd seen were undeniably intimate. She glanced at Nathan's phone sitting casually on the counter. "You're right," she finally managed, her voice quivering. "I'll try to rest." But her mind was miles away, churning with questions and possible answers that ranged from innocent to devastating. She excused herself to the living room, where she sat staring at the baby's ultrasound pictures. With each passing minute, her resolve to uncover the truth strengthened. Mid-morning arrived, and Nathan rushed off to a meeting, leaving behind a tenuous calm. Cassandra remained in the house, the silent halls echoing with possibilities she dared not voice yet. But she made a silent promise to herself and to her unborn child. She would get to the bottom of this. The text message would not vanish into the ether. The truth, however ugly, had to come out. By late afternoon, Cassandra decided she couldn't let another night pass without confronting Nathan. She called her best friend, Rachel McAdams, a grounded, no-nonsense lawyer who had known Cassandra since college. Rachel worked for a prestigious law firm in the city. If anyone could offer a level-headed perspective, it would be her. Rachel arrived before sunset. The moment she set eyes on Cassandra's tear-streaked face, Rachel's expression darkened with concern. Without preamble, Cassandra led her into the sunroom, overlooking a carefully manicured garden, a garden that once brought Cassandra great joy but now felt suffocatingly perfect, a stark contrast to the chaos roaring inside her. "I found messages on Nathan's phone," Cassandra confessed, hands twisting anxiously in her lap, "from someone named Vanessa Langford." Her voice cracked as she uttered the name, and for a second she looked as though she might break down completely. Her voice caught in her throat as she recalled the exact wording. "I miss you." Rachel's sharp eyes narrowed. "Are you sure about the context?" she asked gently, though her tone harbored a skeptical edge. "Could it be a misunderstanding?" Cassandra shook her head. There were multiple messages. Some sounded suggestive, And he never mentioned this woman before, even though he usually tells me about his clients or business partners. Her tone grew bitter. He tells me everything except this. Rachel glanced around, ensuring they were alone. Is he around now? No. He left for a meeting, but he should be back soon, Cassandra replied. I don't know how to handle this. I'm pregnant, Rachel. I feel stupid, but I need to know. She hugged her belly instinctively, as if trying to protect her unborn child from the emotional storm swirling around them. Rachel reached out, clasping Cassandra's hand. You're not stupid. You have every right to demand honesty. She paused, then locked eyes with Cassandra. Confront him. Ask for an explanation. If he tries to lie, you'll know. Her tone was firmer now, shifting from friend to defender. Just then, the sound of a car engine reverberated from the driveway. Nathan's Maserati had returned. Cassandra's stomach lurched with newfound determination. She rose from her seat. Rachel offered to stay for support, but Cassandra wanted to do this on her own. She needed the truth, straight from Nathan, without any external pressure. She found Nathan in his study, shrugging off his blazer. Her heart pounded, but she didn't let it deter her. We need to talk, she said, her voice trembling only slightly. Nathan turned, eyebrows lifted. Everything okay? She gestured for him to sit. He obliged, confusion evident on his face. For a moment, Cassandra faltered, but she steeled herself. Last night, Vanessa Langford texted you. She studied his features for any sign of recognition or guilt. He blinked. Vanessa, she's an acquaintance from a previous business trip, he stammered. His voice lacked conviction, like someone reading from a script they no longer believed. But the dryness in his tone betrayed him. It's nothing serious. His dismissive words ignited a spark of anger in Cassandra. Don't lie to me, Nathan, she said, her voice rising. I saw the messages. They weren't businesslike. She said she missed you. Are you having an affair? Nathan's mouth fell open. Silence filled the study like a thundercloud, ready to break. Finally, he exhaled. It started innocently, he muttered. We met at a conference in San Francisco a few months ago. It was never meant to become anything more than a casual friendship. She was a consultant, someone I hired temporarily. His words sounded rehearsed, like lines he'd repeated in his mind 100 times, hoping they'd somehow sound less damning. Cassandra felt her chest tighten. A casual friendship? That's what you call midnight texts that say, I miss you? Nathan buried his face in his hands. I don't know what to say, he whispered. I never planned to hurt you, Cassandra. I swear. It was a moment of weakness. His voice cracked on the last word. Tears welled in Cassandra's eyes. The harshness of his confession crashed down on her. The man she thought she knew best had withheld a secret that threatened to shatter their family, their unborn child's future. And yet she demanded more. Tell me everything, she said through clenched teeth. Every detail. The air between them pulsed with pain and anticipation. What followed was a torrent of half-explanations and muddled justifications. Nathan insisted it was only emotional, that he had never slept with Vanessa. But that single midnight text suggested something more intimate, something not so easily explained away. And Cassandra felt her world spinning. By the time Nathan finished, she didn't know what to believe anymore. In the end, she bolted from the study, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't even stand to look at him. The storm of confessions had arrived, and it threatened to wash away every last vestige of trust they once shared. Weeks earlier, Nathan had attended a high-profile entrepreneurship conference in San Francisco, an event hosted by the renowned businessman Malcolm Everett. Among the sea of power suits and dazzling city lights, he'd felt both in his element and oddly out of place, as his mind occasionally drifted home to Cassandra. It was at a cocktail reception that Nathan first noticed Vanessa. She stood near the bar, a sleek black dress highlighting her tall, lithe frame. Her dark hair was swept back into an elegant twist, and her eyes sparkled with determination. There was something disarming about her confidence, almost dangerous in its precision. Nathan had wandered over with professional intentions, curious about any new business leads. Vanessa, a freelance consultant, introduced herself with measured confidence, mentioning she'd done market analyses for several Fortune 500 companies. They exchanged business cards. She laughed at his dry jokes, listened too intently, complimented not just his work but the way he carried himself. Nathan recalled Vanessa praising him for his philanthropic endeavors, particularly the charity for underprivileged children that he and Cassandra supported. That mention made him smile. He was used to compliments on his wealth or business savvy, but rarely his charity. Her genuine interest in his causes ignited an odd sense of connection. When the conference sessions resumed the next morning, they sat side by side, discussing strategies and new market opportunities. During the lunch break, Vanessa invited Nathan to a quieter corner of the lobby for coffee. He initially hesitated. Cassandra had asked him to spend his free time calling her to check on her pregnancy, but curiosity got the better of him. One conversation led to another, and before the conference ended, Nathan found himself drawn to the comfort of Vanessa's undivided attention. It felt almost like a confessional, sharing stories of his life and successes while sipping overpriced cappuccinos in the hotel lounge. At first, Nathan convinced himself there was no harm in forging a new business connection. Vanessa's insights were valuable. She offered novel perspectives that could help him expand into new markets. Yet somewhere between the professional consultations and the late-night drinks, lines blurred. Nathan found himself opening up about personal frustrations, the mounting pressure of fatherhood, the fear that he wouldn't be enough for Cassandra and their child, and the isolation that often accompanied his success. Vanessa listened intently, her gaze never wavering. She sympathized, even venturing to share her own regrets about a failed relationship in her past and the toll it had taken on her confidence. In those intimate after-hours discussions, Nathan felt a rush of understanding he hadn't experienced in years. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. By the time the conference ended, Nathan had promised to keep in touch. He told himself he was simply securing an asset for future business endeavors. But deep down, a seed of betrayal had already been planted. The text messages started as professional follow-ups and escalated into personal banter, light flirtation, then heavier insinuations. Each message, each moment of stolen intimacy became an addiction Nathan couldn't quite shake. And so when Vanessa's final text read, "I miss you," he found it difficult to brush off, even though guilt gnawed at him. Every time he pictured Cassandra at home, nurturing the life they'd created together, now, as he stood in his study with Cassandra's demands echoing in his mind, the weight of those choices threatened to bury him. The seeds he had sown in San Francisco had grown into a monstrous reality that could tear his marriage apart. The question now was whether there was any chance of redemption, or if the betrayal had sunk its roots too deep to ever be removed. Vanessa Langford hadn't set out to be the other woman. She grew up in a modest suburb of Tacoma, Washington, in a family that struggled to make ends meet. From a young age, she had resolved that she wouldn't remain confined to a life of limitations. She devoured books on finance, studied relentlessly, and eventually earned a scholarship to a reputable business school. Her ambition paid off. She landed consulting gigs with some of the most prominent corporations in the country. But personal relationships weren't as straightforward for Vanessa. Her father had left her mother for another woman when Vanessa was only 10 years old, leaving her with deep-seated trust issues. Vanessa vowed that she would never become her mother. Desperate, abandoned, left to fend for herself. In her eyes, love was a liability unless it was on her terms. In her mid-20s, Vanessa had a serious relationship with a man named Carter Jameson, a startup founder brimming with promise. He was charming and ambitious, much like Nathan, but Carter's ambition turned out to be destructive. He became consumed by gambling, eventually losing their shared savings. He lied for months, promising deals that didn't exist, forging financial statements, even borrowing in her name. When Vanessa discovered the extent of his debts, her trust in him eroded, and she left before he could drag her down further. The betrayal left her emotionally scarred, forcing her to rebuild her life from the ground up. By the time she met Nathan Hale in San Francisco, Vanessa was a determined businesswoman who preferred short, calculative entanglements. She recognized Nathan's influence and wealth immediately. Initially, she viewed him as a stepping stone, a gateway to new opportunities, bigger contracts, but something about him nudged a vulnerability within her. Despite her pledge to never rely on anyone, she found herself emotionally drawn to this wealthy man who was secretly yearning for an emotional outlet. His eyes held an emptiness she recognized in herself. Vanessa's recollection of their first evening together was crystal clear. It was far from the usual business pleasantries. Nathan was sincere, almost naive at times, and that intrigued her. She told herself she was simply exploring possibilities, both professional and personal. As they began texting each other after the conference, Vanessa recognized the red flags. Nathan was married, and his wife was pregnant. But the rational warnings in her head were drowned out by the undeniable pull she felt whenever their messages flashed on her phone. She told herself she wasn't breaking up a family. She told herself Nathan was the one choosing to respond, choosing to confide in her. Late-night texts turned into occasional video calls. When Nathan's face lit up at the sight of her, Vanessa felt wanted in a way she hadn't in years. It was a dangerous kind of warmth, one that made her forget the consequences. She knew she was treading into dangerous territory, but each digital interaction fed her illusions. She believed Nathan might actually be dissatisfied with his life. That perhaps he was searching for something more than a business empire and a seemingly perfect domestic life. Now, in the wake of the message she had sent at midnight, Vanessa could sense that their carefully balanced secret was unraveling. Nathan's responses had grown shorter, laced with tension. Part of her dreaded this outcome. She was not interested in public scandal, yet part of her thrived on the excitement, the power to command the attention of a man who ostensibly had everything. It was dangerous and selfish, and still, she couldn't stop rereading his last reply, hoping for softness in between the lines. Little did she know her midnight text would trigger a landslide of consequences for everyone involved, including herself. The morning after Cassandra discovered the full extent of Nathan's secret felt like an eternity. She had spent a sleepless night in a guest bedroom away from Nathan. When the sun's rays finally crept across the plush carpet, she found herself staring at the half-packed suitcase she had dragged out sometime during the night. Inside were clothes she couldn't remember folding, a baby onesie she'd unconsciously tucked between blouses, and a printed ultrasound picture caught in the zipper flap. Despite the swirl of emotions, she wasn't entirely sure if she was truly ready to leave. Across the hallway, Nathan wrestled with his own turmoil. He barely slept either. The knowledge that he had wounded the woman he loved gnawed at him. Every creak of the hallway outside the guest room felt like judgment. He was determined to salvage his marriage, but he had no idea how. Feeling cornered, he texted Rachel McAdams in desperation, knowing she was not only Cassandra's best friend, but also a lawyer. If anyone understood what Cassandra was going through, it was Rachel. "Please come," he wrote. "I want to fix this." The text made Rachel bristle. She was torn between wanting to stand by Cassandra and the faint possibility that Nathan might genuinely be repentant. Reluctantly, she agreed to meet him at the villa at dawn, primarily to ensure Cassandra had support. Her car ride over was silent except for the storm of thoughts raging in her mind. What if this man breaks her again? Just after sunrise, Rachel arrived, her expression a portrait of calm authority. Nathan opened the door, his eyes bloodshot. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rachel stepped inside, looking around at the pristine foyer before her gaze fell on Nathan. "I'm not here for small talk," she stated evenly. "Where's Cassandra?" "She's upstairs," Nathan replied. "I need your help, Rachel. I made a mistake. A big one." Rachel's eyes flashed with measured anger. "Mistake is one word for it. You hurt her, Nathan. She's pregnant and vulnerable, and you let someone else come between you." He swallowed hard. "I know, and I hate myself for it." He paused, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. "I'm willing to do anything to make it right." "Then start by being honest," Rachel said, marching upstairs to find Cassandra. She discovered her friend in the guest bedroom, eyes rimmed with red, resting against the headboard with a stoicism that belied her heartbreak. "I'm here," Rachel said softly, hugging her. Cassandra let out a small sob, relief washing over her at the sight of a familiar ally. "I'm so confused," she admitted. "Part of me wants to run away and never look back. The other part of me—" She placed a hand protectively on her belly. "I don't know what's best anymore." Rachel rubbed her shoulders. "You have options. If you want to leave, you can. If you want to stay, that's also your choice. But first, you need to talk this out." Slowly, Cassandra stood, bracing herself against the bed. She nodded, letting Rachel guide her back downstairs to face Nathan in the living room. Nathan waited, anxiety etched into every line of his face. They sat. Cassandra cleared her throat, but before she could speak, Nathan blurted out, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Cassandra." His voice cracked. "I've cut off contact with Vanessa. I blocked her number this morning." It was a start, but Cassandra wasn't sure if it was enough. She glanced at Rachel, who gave a small nod, silently encouraging her to continue. The confrontation was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Dawn's gentle light illuminated the villa's spacious interiors, but it couldn't dispel the shadows of betrayal lurking in every corner. Cassandra took a deep breath, preparing to either rebuild her life with Nathan or walk away forever. One way or another, the day's revelations would leave none of them untouched. That morning, with Rachel present, Cassandra demanded answers from Nathan. The conversation was tense, each word brimming with anger and pain. Nathan began recounting every interaction with Vanessa, from their first meeting in San Francisco to the impulsive, late-night texts. Although there were no explicit confirmations of physical intimacy, the emotional entanglement was undeniable. "I never realized how lonely I felt," Nathan said, looking at Cassandra with watery eyes. "You were always so focused on the baby, on building our future, and I was just there, feeling inadequate, worried I wouldn't be a good father. Vanessa listened to me in a way I hadn't felt in a long time." His voice trembled, each word layered in shame and need. Cassandra's jaw tightened. "I was focused on our child because this is a monumental responsibility, Nathan. That doesn't justify confiding in another woman, especially not in such an intimate way." Her voice was cold steel, but her hands were shaking. Rachel watched, her arms folded, ensuring this remained a constructive conversation rather than a shouting match. "Emotional affairs can be just as devastating as physical ones," she interjected. "You broke her trust." Nathan bowed his head, the weight of guilt apparent. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you let me. I've already told my assistant Blake to cancel any meetings with Vanessa. I've severed all professional ties. I'm serious about this, Cassandra." His hands clutched the edge of the couch cushion, knuckles white. For a long moment, Cassandra said nothing. Her thoughts spiraled to the weeks of missed calls while Nathan was at that conference. The nights he came home late, the subtle changes in his demeanor. Pieces of a puzzle snapped into place, but there was still something gnawing at her. "When you say you ended it, did you tell her it's over, or are you just ignoring her texts?" "I blocked her number," Nathan admitted. "I haven't spoken to her directly since last night." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That leaves a door open, Nathan. If you're serious about mending your marriage, you need to be transparent. Cassandra needs closure." "Call her," Cassandra said, her voice trembling. "Right now, in front of me. Tell her it's over." The demand hit like a gauntlet thrown between them. Nathan winced, but after a moment, he pulled out his phone. He unblocked Vanessa's number, then tapped the screen. The ringing tone echoed through the silent living room. Cassandra's heart pounded in her chest. Each ring felt like an earthquake. Vanessa answered on the third ring, her voice groggy but tinged with hope. "Nathan, is everything okay?" He swallowed hard. "No," he said. "I made a mistake. This has to stop. Don't text or call me again. I'm working on my marriage. Goodbye." Silence filled the line for a beat, and then Vanessa's voice, tight with emotion, rasped, "You owe me more than that, Nathan." But he ended the call. Cassandra stood there, tears brimming. Rachel gently placed a hand on her arm, steadying her. No one spoke for a few seconds, as though they needed to process the finality of what had just happened. Nathan's shoulders slumped, relief and regret mingling in his eyes. However, Cassandra could not ignore a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Betrayals of the heart rarely conclude with a single phone call. In her bones, she sensed that this drama was far from over. While Nathan might have severed the connection, Vanessa Langford wasn't someone who would quietly bow out. More secrets could still lie in wait, ready to surface at the worst possible time. Vanessa had been humiliated, but she wasn't powerless, and hurt people with nothing left to lose were the ones who often detonated the loudest explosions. Word of Nathan's rumored indiscretion began to ripple through their social circles. Although the details remained murky, The Hales were a high-profile couple. Nathan, the savvy investor and philanthropist, and Cassandra, the refined hostess known for her charity galas. Gossip spread quickly in such elite environments, often distorted beyond recognition. Socialites whispered over champagne, junior execs speculated during rooftop mixers, and the tabloids had already run one blind item suspiciously close to their timeline. Among the first to privately reach out to Cassandra was Lauren Beauchamp, an old friend from her university days, who was now married to a technology magnate. Lauren's messages were cautious but supportive, offering a sympathetic ear. She didn't ask questions, just said, "If you need to disappear for a while, my Aspen house is yours." On the other hand, there was Genevieve Lockwood, Cassandra's longtime rival. Genevieve relished the power shifts in their circle and wasted no time fueling rumors of Nathan's improprieties. At a recent charity auction, she had been overheard making pointed remarks about loyalty being such a rare currency among power couples. Her smirk said everything. To Cassandra's surprise, Nathan's mother, Veronica Hale, showed up at their doorstep one afternoon without warning. Veronica was a force of nature, a woman who had secured her own fortune through interior design long before Nathan found success. She was immaculately dressed, her posture erect, eyes sharp with concern. "I heard whispers," Veronica said the moment Cassandra opened the door. "Is something going on between you and Nathan?" Her tone was clipped, but Cassandra could sense genuine worry behind it. Before Cassandra could respond, Nathan appeared, hair slightly disheveled, wearing the expression of someone grappling with too many burdens. "Mother," he said, forcing a polite smile, "you should have called." Veronica squared her shoulders. "And give you a chance to brush me off? I think not." Her gaze flickered between her son and daughter-in-law. "Tell me, what's happening?" Reluctantly, they guided Veronica to the living room. Over strained pleasantries, the truth emerged in cautious fragments. While Cassandra refrained from delving into graphic detail, she made it clear Nathan had maintained an inappropriate relationship with another woman. Veronica's jaw clenched. "How could you do this?" she said, glaring at Nathan. "You have a pregnant wife? A child on the way. Have you lost your senses?" Nathan's face paled. "I made a mistake, Mother. I'm trying to fix it." Cassandra found herself surprised by Veronica's reaction. She had expected her mother-in-law to make excuses for Nathan, or to blame Cassandra for some perceived failing as a wife. Instead, Veronica directed her harshest criticism at Nathan. Then she turned to Cassandra, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not one to overstep," she said. "But if you decide you need a break, somewhere else to stay, I have a cottage in Mendocino. It's quiet, secluded, yours to use if you want." Cassandra was touched by the offer, though she wasn't ready to decide whether running away was the best option. Nathan, on the other hand, looked like he'd been punched in the gut. He adored his mother, always seeking her approval. To see her side so unambiguously with Cassandra shook him. Later that evening, Lauren Beauchamp called again, this time urging Cassandra to consider joining her for a weekend at a spa retreat. "It'll help you clear your head," Lauren suggested. Meanwhile, Genevieve Lockwood posted cryptic social media updates. Sometimes, the wealthiest families have the darkest secrets, followed by various emojis that fueled more speculation. Nathan sensed the tension rising from every corner, family, friends, even business associates, who watched him with weary eyes. His father, Douglas Hale, a retired banker, sent him a curt message. "Handle your affairs, son. Don't let this overshadow everything you've built." Allies closed ranks around Cassandra, offering her solace and escape routes. Enemies gloated or spread rumors, waiting for her to crumble. Nathan found himself on an island, grappling with guilt and the real possibility of losing everything. In a world where appearances could be everything, the cracks in the Hales' marriage were now on public display, and the hungry eyes of high society were fixed upon the drama unfolding. A week after Nathan's phone call to Vanessa, Cassandra and Rachel met for lunch at a quiet bistro downtown, seated by a window that overlooked the bustling street. They spoke in hushed tones about the path forward. Cassandra looked tired, her cheeks slightly hollow from stress, yet her eyes held a spark of determination. "How are you holding up?" Rachel asked, sipping her herbal tea. Cassandra sighed. "Better than last week. I've mostly avoided public events, but the gossip hasn't stopped. And Nathan," Her voice trailed off. He's trying. He canceled a business trip to Tokyo, says he wants to stay by my side. He even offered to attend counseling with me. Rachel nodded thoughtfully. That might help. Sometimes a third party can mediate these emotions and confessions better than we can on our own. They discussed the legal aspects of separation, but Cassandra wasn't ready to make that leap. Despite her heartbreak, she couldn't ignore her love for Nathan, or her desire to maintain a stable family for their unborn child. Still, the fear of making a mistake, of staying with someone who might break her again, clung to her like fog. I just need some assurance that he really means it, she said, stirring her soup absently. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, as if afraid the truth might crack her open. The next day, Nathan arranged a private session with Dr. Helena Quinn, a well-respected marriage counselor who had guided several high-profile couples through tumultuous times. The counselor's office was discreetly located in an elegant townhouse, ensuring that paparazzi or curious onlookers wouldn't easily spot them. Once inside, they sat opposite Dr. Quinn, who wore a compassionate expression. "Tell me what brings you here," she began, her voice calm and reassuring. Cassandra inhaled shakily. "We're expecting a baby in about 2 months," she said, glancing briefly at Nathan. "And I recently found out he's been emotionally involved with someone else." The words stung even in repetition. Nathan interlaced his fingers, staring down at them. "I betrayed her trust. I let another person fill a void. I didn't know how to communicate about it, but I want to make this right." His voice broke midway through, a crack that wasn't just guilt, but desperation. Dr. Quinn asked pointed yet gentle questions, drawing out details of their relationship. Cassandra admitted she'd been preoccupied with the pregnancy, sometimes forgetting to check in on Nathan's emotional state. Nathan confessed to harboring anxiety about fatherhood, which led him to seek validation elsewhere. For the first time, they were saying the things they had both been too scared to voice. It was painful, but liberating. Each word, a small piece of a puzzle they were trying to reassemble. Over the next few sessions, they delved deeper. Dr. Quinn encouraged them to speak openly about their fears. For Cassandra, it was the dread of raising a child with a partner she couldn't trust. For Nathan, it was the terror of inadequacy, the fear he'd never match up to the expectations of a perfect husband and father. There were moments when Cassandra wanted to scream, other times when she found herself softening too quickly. The tug-of-war between betrayal and longing was relentless. Some sessions ended in tears, others in long embraces. Bit by bit, they learned to communicate with a level of honesty that had been missing. Nathan began sharing daily updates with Cassandra about his business deals and interactions, trying to rebuild trust through transparency. Cassandra tentatively opened her heart, allowing the chance for forgiveness to take root. However, in the back of her mind, the specter of Vanessa loomed, along with the rumors swirling through their social sphere. Cassandra wasn't naive. She knew that a second chance could be shattered if old wounds were reopened, or if Vanessa decided to reinsert herself into their lives. For now, though, Cassandra clung to the hope that through genuine effort and counseling, they might still salvage the life they once cherished, and give their child the secure family it deserved. Just as it seemed like Nathan and Cassandra were inching toward calmer waters, a ripple of new trouble emerged. Genevieve Lockwood, ever the opportunist, had her own business dealings with Vanessa Langford. Genevieve had secretly hired Vanessa to conduct market research for an upcoming venture. But what began as a professional collaboration quickly morphed into a strategic manipulation. Genevieve saw Vanessa's heartbreak not as weakness, but as leverage. Over a luncheon in a posh city restaurant, Genevieve probed Vanessa for details about her entanglement with Nathan Hale. Vanessa, still reeling from Nathan's curt phone call, found herself both indignant and oddly longing for closure. She confessed pieces of her story to Genevieve, how she had met Nathan at a conference, how their conversations turned intimate, and how he'd suddenly ended everything with a single phone call, offering no real apology or explanation. There was no plan, just a sense of spiraling confusion she hadn't anticipated. Genevieve feigned sympathy. "You must feel terribly used," she cooed, sipping her champagne. "Nathan always puts on a noble facade, but trust me, beneath that gentlemanly veneer, he's ruthless." I wouldn't be surprised if he's stringing you along for a better business deal." Her tone dripped with just enough poison to sound convincing. Vanessa's eyes flared with pain and anger. "I thought there was something real between us," she murmured, "but maybe I was just another contract he could break." Genevieve laid a manicured hand over Vanessa's. "It's not too late to set the record straight. If you wanted to talk to the press, I'm sure they'd be eager to hear your side." She pulled out a sleek black card and slid it across the table. On it, the name of a well-known PR handler notorious for discreet exposés. Vanessa tensed. "I'm not looking for a scandal. My career is based on discretion. I can't afford to be at the center of tabloid gossip." Genevieve withdrew her hand, a sly smile curving her lips. "I understand. But if you change your mind, know that there are people like me who would ensure your perspective is heard, especially if it means taking Nathan Hale down a peg." She said it sweetly, like an offer of tea laced with arsenic. Meanwhile, back at the Hale villa, Nathan and Cassandra tentatively attempted to resume a semblance of normalcy. They occasionally attended small dinner parties, steering clear of large public gatherings to avoid sensational headlines. However, an undercurrent of unease colored every social interaction. Friends wore polite smiles, but Cassandra could sense the curiosity in their eyes, the unspoken questions on their tongues. Whispers followed her through hallways like perfume, faint but unmistakable. One evening, as they dined with Lauren Beauchamp and her husband Luke, Lauren mentioned having run into Genevieve. "She seems quite chummy with a new consultant," she remarked casually, cutting into her steak. "Some woman named Vanessa." Cassandra felt the blood drain from her face. Nathan set down his fork abruptly. "Vanessa is now working for Genevieve?" he asked, voice taut. Lauren shrugged. "That's what Genevieve implied. She was dropping hints left and right. You know how she loves stirring the pot." A tense silence followed. Cassandra forced herself to breathe evenly. She suspected Genevieve was gleaning information and possibly twisting Vanessa's bitterness into a weapon. The question was, how far would Genevieve go to disrupt their fragile peace? Later that night, Cassandra and Nathan lay awake in bed. The air between them was thick with unspoken worries. If Vanessa harbored resentment, and if Genevieve sensed an opportunity for revenge, there was a real possibility they could tear down the progress Nathan and Cassandra had made in rebuilding trust. Together, they had weathered one storm. But the horizon now threatened another. This time, the allies and enemies were murkier, and the next betrayal could come from anywhere. A few days passed in tense anticipation. Cassandra busied herself with preparations for the baby's arrival, setting up the nursery with soft pastel colors, sorting tiny clothes gifted by well-wishers, and double-checking appointment dates with her obstetrician, Dr. Lucia Montoya. The nursery had once been a symbol of hope. Now it served as a fragile haven from the swirling uncertainty beyond its pastel walls. Nathan, on the other hand, threw himself into business. He arranged strategy sessions, made deals, and worked tirelessly to ensure no scandal tainted his professional reputation. If the rumor mill became too loud, shareholders might lose confidence, and investors could withdraw. After all, he had built his empire largely on personal branding, the image of a philanthropic, family-oriented millionaire. Nathan couldn't shake the sense that Genevieve Lockwood and Vanessa Langford had formed a connection. If Genevieve found a way to spotlight Vanessa's side of the story, it could become headline fodder. The press thrived on tales of adultery and betrayal among the wealthy. In a last-ditch effort to prevent disaster, Nathan arranged a private meeting with Genevieve at an upscale restaurant. He hoped to negotiate some kind of ceasefire. Genevieve arrived fashionably late, a smug smile playing on her lips. Draped in a designer dress, she exuded confidence, fully aware of Nathan's precarious position. "Nathan," she purred, taking a seat opposite him. "What a pleasant surprise." He forced a polite smile. "Genevieve, I appreciate you coming. I've heard you're working with Vanessa Langford." Her eyes glittered with mischief. "I am. She's quite talented, you know. Shame you didn't keep her around. She might have added real value to your portfolio." Nathan leaned forward, clasping his hands. "I'm not here to discuss business strategy. I just want you to understand the gravity of the situation. This scandal, if it's blown out of proportion, will affect more than just me. Cassandra is pregnant." Genevieve raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. Let me guess. You want me to ensure Vanessa keeps quiet? Perhaps dangle a settlement? Nathan swallowed hard, choosing his words carefully. I'm simply asking for discretion. If Vanessa has any grievances, let them be addressed privately. I'm willing to compensate her for any inconvenience. A laugh escaped Genevieve's glossy lips. You want to buy her silence? Oh, Nathan, you never cease to amuse me. And this from the man who prides himself on charity and moral high ground. Anger flared in Nathan's chest, but he kept his tone controlled. I'm trying to protect my family from unnecessary humiliation. If you have any compassion. Genevieve waved a hand dismissively. Spare me the moral lecture. Compassion is not my currency, Nathan. I thrive on influence. Perhaps you can offer me something more valuable than hush money. Nathan's jaw tightened. He knew Genevieve was angling for a seat on the board of one of his philanthropic organizations, or access to certain high-profile contacts. She was always maneuvering for power. Name your price, he said quietly. Genevieve smiled, leaning back in her chair. I'll let you know, she whispered, then stood up. Enjoy the rest of your meal. As she sauntered away, Nathan felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. The price of power, it seemed, was measured not just in money, but in loyalty, reputation, and moral compromise. He realized that even if he managed to keep Vanessa from unleashing a scandal, he'd be indebted to Genevieve in a way that might haunt him for years. And still, there was no guarantee that Vanessa would adhere to Genevieve's game plan. With every step Nathan took to protect his family, he felt another piece of his integrity slip away. He was learning that in the world of high society, everything, friendship, loyalty, and even love, had its price. And he was dangerously close to paying it in full. As the tension mounted, Cassandra found herself on the verge of giving birth, sooner than expected. Stress had taken its toll, and during her latest checkup, Dr. Lucia Montoya advised her to remain calm and avoid any emotional upheavals. But fate had other plans. One stormy evening, while Nathan was finishing a conference call in his home office, Cassandra's phone buzzed. To her shock, the caller ID displayed Vanessa Langford. Her heart pounded as she answered, apprehension twisting her stomach into knots. You deserve the truth, Vanessa said without introduction. Her voice was weary, almost resigned. Nathan wants to sweep everything under the rug, but I can't live with rumors swirling around that I'm some vamp who seduced him for profit. There was a crack in her voice, the kind that suggested she'd repeated those words too many times in her head already. Cassandra swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? She asked, voice taut. I'm meeting Genevieve tomorrow, Vanessa said. She wants me to speak to a journalist friend of hers, someone who can spin this story in a way that'll hurt Nathan's standing. She claims she can help me salvage my reputation. But I realize now, this is a game to her. Nathan offered me compensation to stay silent, but I need more than money to clear my conscience. Her tone was conflicted, defensive, yet aching for someone to understand. Cassandra's mind reeled. So what do you want from me? Vanessa paused. I want to meet in person. No Genevieve, no Nathan. Just you and me. Let's set the record straight. A beat passed before she added, softer this time. I don't want to carry this anymore either. Against her better judgment, Cassandra agreed, her need for closure outweighing her caution. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the next morning. The moment she hung up, her pulse refused to settle. She clutched the edge of the table like it might anchor her. By the time Cassandra ended the call, her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the phone. She made her way to Nathan, who was just wrapping up his video conference. She called me, Cassandra said, her voice shaking. Vanessa wants to meet. Nathan's eyes widened with alarm. Are you serious? She's playing a dangerous game with Genevieve. Let me go instead. Cassandra shook her head firmly. No, this is between me and her. I need to hear what she has to say. I'm tired of secrets. Nathan raked a hand through his hair, desperation etching his features. I don't like this. You're too far along in your pregnancy to deal with this stress. She squared her shoulders, summoning an inner strength she wasn't sure she possessed. I have to, for my own peace of mind. When morning came, Cassandra drove herself to the cafe. Rain battered the windows, the sky a turbulent gray. Inside, Vanessa sat at a corner table, hair damp from the downpour. She looked far less glamorous than Cassandra had imagined. just a young woman burdened by regret and exhaustion. Her makeup was smudged, her posture slouched, not a woman plotting revenge, but one unraveling. They talked for nearly an hour. Vanessa confirmed that she and Nathan had never slept together, but the emotional attachment had been intense. She also revealed Genevieve's manipulative tactics, how Genevieve had tried to coerce her into revealing damning evidence against Nathan in exchange for future business. Opportunities. I was angry, Vanessa confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. But I can't be part of a witch hunt. Nathan did wrong, yes, but I let my own insecurities push me into that relationship. We were both at fault. Her voice cracked, but there was no self-pity, only raw, stripped-down regret. Listening to Vanessa's story brought Cassandra a strange sense of clarity. She realized that while Nathan had betrayed her trust, he wasn't the cold-hearted philanderer the rumors painted him to be. He was flawed, yes, but human. And in some strange way, so was Vanessa. As Vanessa concluded, Cassandra exhaled a shaky breath. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not sure where we go from here. But I appreciate your honesty." Before they could continue, Cassandra felt a sharp pain radiate across her belly. Her eyes widened in alarm as a rush of warmth coursed down her legs. Her water had broken. 6 weeks early. Too early. Panic flared in Vanessa's eyes. "Oh God, you're in labor." Heart pounding, Cassandra nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Her hands clutched the table edge, knuckles white, face pale. Vanessa sprang into action, calling for an ambulance. In the blink of an eye, the rivalry and tension between them took a back seat to the urgent reality of new life about to enter the world. The transformation was instant. Vanessa's voice turned crisp, calm, as she relayed their location. Outside, the storm raged on, as if echoing the whirlwind unfolding in Cassandra's life. Whether or not the baby arrived safely depended on swift action, and on whether Nathan could be there in time to face the ultimate test of their bond. Sirens wailed through the rain-slicked streets as the ambulance sped toward the hospital. Cassandra clutched Vanessa's hand, breaths coming in ragged waves as contractions rocked her body. Despite the swirling chaos, Vanessa remained focused, relaying instructions from the paramedics. In that moment, all enmity dissolved. They were two women, united by empathy and the imminent arrival of a fragile new life. It no longer mattered who had been wrong, who had been betrayed. Only that Cassandra was safe, and the baby had a fighting chance. Nathan raced through traffic, hazard lights flashing, desperately trying to reach the hospital. Rachel called him en route, her voice frantic. "Cassandra's been taken to St. Mercy Hospital. She's in labor, early labor." Fear pulsed through Nathan. Was their baby safe? Would Cassandra be okay? By the time he sprinted into the hospital lobby, he was drenched from the storm outside. Racing to the maternity ward, he nearly collided with Vanessa in the hallway. She was pacing anxiously, her hair hanging in damp strands. Gone was the poised consultant. Standing there now was a woman who had helped save a life. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "She's in there," Vanessa said quietly, nodding toward the delivery room. "I'll give you both some space." Nathan hesitated, swallowing thickly. "Thank you." He managed to nod in thanks. Vanessa stepped aside. Moments later, Nathan was by Cassandra's side, her face contorted in pain as doctors and nurses surrounded them, monitoring her vitals and the baby's heart rate. Dr. Montoya glanced up, relief washing over her features when she saw Nathan. "She's stabilized, but we need to proceed carefully. The baby is premature." Cassandra's gaze locked onto Nathan's, tears glistening in her eyes, pain and relief converging. "You're here," she whispered, her voice cracking. Gripping her hand, Nathan choked out, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, Cass." Hours passed in a blur of medical directives, labored breathing, and emotional peaks and valleys. At 3:14 p.m., a piercing cry filled the room. Cassandra and Nathan's baby, a baby girl, arrived. Tiny but astonishingly strong. The medical team whisked her off for immediate neonatal care, ensuring she could breathe and maintain her vitals. Exhausted, Cassandra leaned back against the pillows, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. Nathan pressed a trembling kiss to her forehead, overwhelmed by gratitude and remorse in equal measure. He could scarcely believe how close they had come to losing this moment of wonder. Later, once Cassandra was settled in a recovery room, they were allowed to see their daughter, tucked in an incubator, wrapped in soft blankets. She clung to life with fierce determination. Cassandra reached in to gently stroke the baby's tiny hand. Nathan stood beside her, silent tears gathering in his eyes as he witnessed the miracle before him. "I love you," he said to Cassandra, voice unsteady. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life showing you and her how deeply sorry I am." Cassandra blinked away her tears, heart swelling with conflicting emotions, relief, lingering hurt, and a hesitant hope. "Let's just focus on our daughter right now," she whispered, voice raw with emotion. In the corridor, Rachel stood with Vanessa, exchanging uneasy glances. Vanessa felt out of place, but something compelled her to wait. When Rachel told her the baby had arrived safely, Vanessa exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Without fanfare, she slipped away, leaving behind a short note for Cassandra. "I'm sorry for everything. Congratulations on your beautiful baby girl." For Nathan and Cassandra, life would never return to its old simplicity. Too much had transpired. Too many wounds opened. Yet in that hospital room, watching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of their daughter's tiny chest, a glimmer of hope took shape. Perhaps in the aftermath of betrayal and heartbreak, a new chapter could begin, one defined by the power of second chances and the unwavering bond of a family, tested by storms, but not destroyed. Thank you for joining us on this tumultuous journey of love, betrayal, and unexpected alliances. From a single midnight text to the hospital corridor where new life arrived, Nathan and Cassandra's story proves that even the strongest bonds can be tested. But with honesty, redemption, and courage, they can also be rebuilt. The question of trust lingers, yet so does the promise of a second chance, especially with a newborn life illuminating their path forward. Dear friend, life has a way of testing us in the quietest and most unexpected ways. Not with noise, but with moments that demand our deepest strength. As the Stoics remind us, we cannot choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our response. In the heartache, in the reckoning, and finally, in the fragile breath of a newborn child, this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about choosing to begin again. Cassandra and Nathan's journey reminds us that while trust can shatter in an instant, rebuilding it is an act of courage that unfolds day by day. Sometimes healing doesn't come wrapped in perfection, but in tiny, determined hands that teach us how to hope again. Because even after the storm, there's always a sunrise. And the ones who choose to stay and rebuild are often the strongest of all. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs a reminder of second chances, and subscribing to our channel for more heartfelt stories like this. Your support means everything.